Good afternoon, good morning, edX communities, and also my fellow ocean citizens. Welcome back to edX Pixel Virtual Expo, World Oceans Week, 2021. So for day 3 of WOW, where the focus actually lies on ocean defenders, we hope to create a unique opportunity to connect and unite diverse conservationists, youth, social enterprises, and everyone around our blue planet, where we get together to talk about the future and also the state of the ocean. So for this session we have here today is about scaling up the blue economy, turning plastic to gold edition, where we will be exploring and discussing on social enterprise, ocean plastic, sustainability, circular economy, and also scalability. Please do drop your questions and comments, and we will promise to have them answered for you during this session itself. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce and also welcome the moderator for this session. He is Vincent Neufel, all the way from Netherlands. Vincent is a circular economy professional who has worked in international leadership roles for Accenture, United Nations, and also WWF on strategic sustainability and ocean conservation initiatives. Vincent is an accomplished underwater photographer and also an author on ocean conservation topics. He has dedicated his life to safeguarding the ocean's future. He is also the co-founder of Into the Blue Foundation, a Florida-based 501c3 non-profit organization. And also he is currently working on his latest project, the Ocean Story, in support of the UN Ocean Decade. Here with Vincent, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nora.
Right, over
Uh,
to you, Vincent.
and hi, everyone around the planets, around our blue planets. Very excited to be here with you. And we have some amazing speakers on our panel. So really excited to hear more from them. Just a little bit about the context and about the ocean story. Like I said in the opening session of this week, I truly believe that this World Ocean Day or World Ocean Week is the most important in its history, because the decisions that we make in the next 10 years are going to be decisive for the future of our oceans. So with the ocean story, I'm trying to tell the story of the most iconic and endangered species in our oceans through the lens of three megatrends. So the first one is overfishing. We all know the issues, of course. Many species have been completely depleted. We've lost, for some species of sharks, over 99%. The second one is ocean warming. You probably know the devastating effect of the warming effects on coral reefs and other ecosystems. If we don't keep within the 1.5 degrees warming of the Paris Climate Accords, we stand to lose those ecosystems entirely. And then the third one is on plastic pollution, which we'll be talking about today. So obviously, plastic has become ubiquitous. In our homes, it's everywhere, but it's also coming at a cost. And as you all know, we now have over 11 million tons of plastics entering our oceans, and this is actually increasing every year. And it's increasing because we're consuming more, because there's a lack of waste management. And in a business as usual scenario, the amount of plastic in our ocean will triple in just the next 20 years. So today we'll be talking about some of the solutions to prevent that. And I think the positive news is that with existing solutions and technologies, we can actually reduce the flow of plastic into the ocean. But you'll hear some of our panelists talk a little bit more about that in more detail. So without further ado, just a brief introduction on the speakers. We have Bruce Dudley, Senior Vice President at the Delphi Group, who will be presenting on a really interesting report that they're launching. We have Ahmed Gabber, Guinness World Record holder for the deepest scuba dive, which is really impressive, 332 meters and 35 centimeters. I'm also a technical diver, but I've never been any deeper than 100 meters. Just going 3 times as deep is incredible. He's also the co-founder of Imagine If, and together with his co-founder Farah Baki, they'll also be talking about their purpose-driven social enterprise. And then last but not least, we have Matilda De Silva from Singapore, and she's the founder and CEO of the Ocean Purpose Project. So yeah, so we're going to start and open the session with Matilda, who will be doing a 5-minute presentation and then a short Q&A. Matilda, over to you.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? All right. Good to go?
Yes, it's working.
Okay, fantastic. So today's topic is plastic to profit, and this is something that I'm very passionate to share with you. After all, this is a couple of years of work that's gone into it. So let me just jump in with a very interesting, simple question with regards to plastic. If plastic comes from oil, why don't we just turn it back into oil, creating a profit motive, right? You know, trash to treasure. I think it's a very simple question, but I also think that this is something that we require quite a bit of thought that goes into it. Now, my name is Matilda De Silva, and I am the Chief Purpose Officer as well as the CEO of Ocean Purpose Project. And for a few years, I've been working to answer this question with the Ocean Purpose Project Plastic to Fuel unit. So this unit that you see here is able to go off and convert tons, 3 blue whales in weight of unsorted ocean plastic into high profit products. Now, this is the thing that's really interesting. We are looking at 100% gas emission capture and turning everything that we capture from these from the plastic waste into high purpose products and monetizing that. Now, this is perfect because Asia's $1.3 billion of plastic pollution can now be turned into things such as low sulfur fuel, carbon black, carbon nanotubes, and even blue hydrogen, right? Now, imagine turning a landfill or even ocean pollution that keeps washing up on our beaches or under our waters into these high value products. Now, imagine if you could turn all this plastic into not just oil, which is actually highly volatile because the price of fuel is, you know, highly volatile, but into products such as carbon nanotubes. I'll tell you what they are in a little bit. And of course, blue hydrogen, which is on everybody's lips, right? Everybody is looking towards hydrogen to be put into hydrogen fuel cells. That's the energy of the future that just creates energy, as well as water as a byproduct. Now, imagine if the ocean plastic that's floating out at sea could do that. Imagine if you could build a unit that isn't a fixed factory, but is able to travel anywhere on this 40-foot container over land and sea and go to any location that is polluted. You know, that's really what we have been working on as a social enterprise, to go off and process 1 ton of unsorted ocean plastic per day. You know, and really we do this through our partnerships with educational facilities in Singapore and around the world. We do that with partnerships with our engineering partners from India, from Germany, from Singapore as well, and figure out how we can bring all of these great best-in-class minds together in order for us to hack this amazing solution. Now, let me just jump in a little bit in terms of the financial part of this, right? Because one of the biggest critiques that us in the environmental community or as NGOs always face from big business is that, what are the numbers? You guys don't know how to present numbers. You're only talking about the environment in esoteric firms. Now, imagine, right, the plastic to fuel market, which is really chemical recycling. Now, chemical recycling is different from mechanical recycling because it helps not only recover and repurpose a much broader range of waste plastics that cannot be mechanically recycled, but through the innovations that we are working on, are able to capture all of that ocean plastic and drive the big polluters to now see that there's money being left on the table. And how much money? Just look at all of these projections, right, in terms of the plastic to fuel industry. Now, even during a Trump administration, plastic to fuel brought over 20,000 jobs in the US alone. Now, imagine with this new renewed sense in COVID or post-pandemic, where we could actually go off and drive that need for us to, create more sustainable markets. Plastic to fuel is definitely one that can do that. Now, here is one of the byproducts of our plastic to fuel unit. That's carbon nanotubes. Something is really interesting that I found out was that when you take our carbon nanotubes and you put them in smartphones, of course, they are one of the biggest sectors that demand for carbon nanotubes, companies like LG and Samsung, they actually perform 5 times faster than some of the trace metals that are used currently. I think this is a game changer when ocean plastic can be used in your smartphone and make it perform faster. This is really the challenge that I throw to all NGOs and social enterprises that are innovating. We need to be as innovative as some of the best designers in commercial expertise and in the market today. Now, the beauty of our carbon nanotubes is that this can be used in solar, smartphone, energy storage. These are all the sustainable new markets, right, that are starting to open up. Not just that, we come to the sexy bit, right, which is hydrogen gas. This market is just set to boom. And this is really the energy of the future, the fuel cell, car, rocket fuel, everything, right? Like, we're just going to be looking to hydrogen more and more. I mean, this is a USD $120 billion market just in 2020. We all are aware of how that economy performed, right, last year. Now imagine where this is going to move in the future. So I think when I talk to you about some of these products that we produce, us, the little itty bitty social enterprise that can come up with this, the future is amazing for all the future companies that are about to come down our line. Now, just to share with you what this looks like, because everybody asks, right? Okay, your machine can do all of these amazing things, but it's not a big factory. Who wants a machine like this, right? Who needs a machine like this? Now, we're already starting to see a lot of demand coming through, especially from Southeast Asia. I just had a meeting yesterday with Indonesians. And we've also had a lot of calls from Philippines, from Bangladesh, from India, saying, can you send this unit to us? Now, one of the challenges that we face is that it costs a lot for us to go off and research how to create a unit like this that is able to turn plastic into fuel and many other products in a safe way, in a way that is also, following all of the safety standards with zero emissions in a sustainable way. In a way that lowers risk and covers all the safety and regulatory compliances that governments require. This is part of the reason why we work with petrochems to figure out how to do that, how to take that industrial standard and deliver that in terms of customers. Now, to explain why a small little unit as opposed to a factory. With a lot of the extended producer responsibility laws that are starting to come onto the market, we're going to see countries not able to export all of their plastic waste. So what are they going to do with that stuff? This is where if you can't export the plastic waste to us, we're going to come to you over land and sea. And the beauty of this is we tick a lot more boxes than even our competitors who are in the oil and gas and petrochemical market or in plastic to fuel. Even though we're a smaller facility, it allows us to scale up, scale down, and scale out as well. And the beauty behind this is that, this allows us to go to the poorest of the poor coastal communities that are inundated with plastic and be able to access them with a nimble container unit. Now, the team is really one of the strengths, and I have to give some props to this amazing team. They're young, they're old, they're everywhere in between, but they all come together with one common goal, which is how do we put all of our brain cells together in order for us to tackle this stuff. I'm also so proud of our corporate partners and our government partners who've come together and said, let's work with this on you. Let's work on this with you, Matilda, and let's like figure out how we can bridge all of these gaps that you're currently seeing and create a solution that's not just sustainable, but makes dollar sense and makes regulatory sense as well. Now, I know I started all of this, right, with a very business-centric mindset in terms of plastic to fuel. But let me explain to you why this is important and why I do what I do. In 2015, I was representing Singapore in a dragon boat race. And as you can see, we won a lot of medals. We had a great time, beautiful beach. But when I came back to Singapore, my health was really affected. So I literally fell sick for 2 to 3 days. From there, I developed autoimmune conditions. Now, this gives you an idea of why, right? That beautiful beach that we were standing in was inundated with raw sewage for many years. And I only found this out in 2018. So just 3 days of ocean pollution caused my health to go down the toilet, so to speak. Now, the question is, with the health that I have left, what can I do with a purpose? How can I move all of these ideas forward? How can I prevent ocean pollution and not just be a victim or a bystander or somebody that, creates a beautiful IG story? How do I innovate and drive innovation and really look at the problem from a different lens? And so I'd like to end my presentation with this image. This is something, a picture that was taken very recently. It could be any of us, any Asian child, right, today. They seem happy, they seem like they're having fun, but this cannot be reality for them. And the truth is, it is. It was not reality for us when we were children, but we have to fix a lot of these wrongs and figure out how do we ideate as creatively as possible to tick all the boxes of profit and purpose, that trash to treasure, right? It's not just something nice that you say on a podcast. There's hard work behind it. And I think, this image really tells us and shows us what are the bolts, what's at stake, why we need to do what we do. I mean, I just had my health affected because of 3 days of pollution. Think about all the children and the people around this world who are affected by ocean pollution, plastic pollution, who have no solution, and they are counting on us to figure out what those solutions are. So that's why we've decided on plastic to fuel as one of our stopgap solutions. But some of the other things that Ocean Purpose Project does as well is bioremediation, seaweed and mussel bioplastics, coral reforestation, as well as a host of other behavior change projects. So I'm just going to end it there, and let's take some questions.
Thank you so much, Matilda, for this very inspiring story, and really also demonstrating that ocean plastic is not just an issue for the ocean, but also for human health, like you demonstrated yourself, and for economic health. So I have one quick question also for the sake of time. In terms of the solution, are you able to process any type of plastic? And do you still need to do sorting before you actually put it into the machine?
Yep. So we do need to sort. We have to clean as well. The ideal that we are working towards is to be able to just have cleaned plastic that is unsorted. So some of the aspects that we are working on, this is why our partners are so diverse, is to be able to take all forms of ocean plastic, even the stuff that's been floating for 10, 20, 30 years. I think that is really, the bit that is very difficult to address. Every corporate, every NGO is having that difficulty because you cannot mechanically recycle some of that ocean plastic. And so these are areas that through science and through our partners, we're trying to address. And once we're able to do that, maybe then this makes that chemical recycling or the plastic to fuel, as we propose, a more viable solution for ocean plastics.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this very inspiring presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So next I'd like to introduce Farah and Ahmed from the Imagine If organization. They'll talk a little bit more about the really inspiring work they're doing with engaging their communities on solutions and initiatives, and how they're working on achieving a plastic-free ocean.
So I will start. I will start first. Thank you, Matilda, for this very inspiring presentation. That you gave us here. Actually, your word that you used during your presentation. Actually, this is the keyword that inspired me and my partners. You started mentioning imagine if, and this is the name of our company. So imagine if the world without plastic. This is the key. This is the key word that actually inspired all of us. I do a lot of deep sea diving. And I can realize in the Red Sea here, in the Mediterranean, around the world as well. And then I realized, lately the world is not the same like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So that was the key start. After I did the world record dive, I'm not gonna leave anything after that to inherit it to my children or to the world after that. And no one is aware of what's going on. Everyone want to achieve something personal. They don't want to work on the environment. So I established another. So I wanted to do another record, and my idea, it wasn't the record itself. I wanted to do something. To point out a problem. So I did a record. So I collected 614 divers in 2015, and then I did the largest underwater cleanup in a single venue. But that wasn't enough. To point out a problem. We want solutions. So I was thinking, and then I teamed up with my partner, Omar. Omar is also an activist, but he's an activist he does a lot of. He climbed the seven summits, the largest mountain in each country, and then he realized the same as well. He realized that. The land is not the same 10, 20 years ago either. So we were thinking together, we need to establish something solid. To point out the problem that we are actually working on right now, which is the plastic. And this is the main issue in the world right now. So we established the company with Farah, with Omar, me, Omar, Farah, and Shireen. So we are four of us, so we founded Imagine If company. And the main target for this company is increase the awareness, especially for the younger generation, create solutions, and then give alternatives to the world. I will leave now to Farah so she can continue for our company presentation. Farah.
Thank you so much for this intro, and I'm very proud to be working with Gabri. He's very passionate about the sea, and I wanted to start off actually by giving you an introduction about
أنا
the
أحمد
founders.
جبر، أنا ضابط سابق في القوات المسلحة المصرية، حاصل على لقبين في كتاب جينيس الألقاب القياسية. بعدهم بسنة أخذت رقم ثالث، قدرت إن أنا أجمع 614 دايفر وعملت أكبر عملية تنظيف في قاع البحر.
أنا اسمي عمر سمرة، مغامر ورجل أعمال مصري، أول مصري يصعد إلى قمة جبل إيفرست والقمم السبعة.
الحياة في البحر بتعلمك إن علاقتك بالبيئة اللي حواليك لازم تبقى علاقة احترام متبادل.
فوق الجبل بتشوف كل حاجة صنعناها صغيرة قدام الطبيعة. ده المفروض يبقى حجم تأثير الإنسان على البيئة كلها.
الإنسان كل يوم بيبقى سبب في إنه يقتل نفسه بالبطيء. الممارسات اليومية الروتينية ممكن تتحول لممارسات بتصمم حياتنا.
الطبيعة دايما عندها طريقتها في إنها تتعافى، لكن محتاجين نديها الفرصة تتنفس عشان تعالج نفسها.
Okay, so in celebration of World Ocean Week, I would just love to present this gem or give you an idea about this gem that is the Red Sea, that is our main resource for marine life. And it's considered to be one of the 7 underwater wonders of the world. We host around 500,000 people every year visiting the Red Sea, and also in this year, because of COVID, a lot of people actually came and moved to coastal cities to become like digital nomads. And the Red Sea has a lot of fish and species, and right now it's really the peak time to raise awareness about how to keep this marine life healthy. There are some special things about the Red Sea is that there's like island hopping for divers. It has over 25 islands. There isn't just coral reef sites, but there's also a lot of lost shipwrecks from the world wars. and sunken ships. It has very special creatures such as the sailfish. It's the fastest fish in the world. And also it has a very widespread of corals in Ras Muhammad. These are some of the best diving sites. Just exciting everyone out there who's a diver to come and visit those sites. Just gonna go through them very quickly. So remember earlier when I was talking to you about Mahmayat Ras Muhammad? So this proctorate was trashed when we visited it, and we wanted to clean it up, because what was happening is that all this trash is breaking into microplastics, as you know. But also we created an awareness message in Arabic, and we tried that all our content is in Arabic to reach the local community, because a lot of this narrative about the environment is very present in the international scene, but maybe not to the local scene. So we tried to make everything in Arabic. After that, what we realized is that because we are cleaning in a coastal area, this area is nowhere near a recycling facility. So we're working right now with local women there with limited incomes to create products that can be sold out of plastic by ironing it and to upcycling it. This model has actually been successful by a company named Very Nile in Cairo, and we have them as our knowledge partners to replicate that near a coastal area where it's nowhere near a recycling facility. This is a sample of the amazing products that can be created out of this workshop. Also, to raise awareness, we didn't want all the messaging to come from us, but we wanted it to come from youth to youth. So with the sponsorship of our strategic partner, the National Bank of Egypt, we got cash prizes amounting for about 200,000 Egyptian pounds in 6 different creative categories, and we invited artists to create the artwork themselves. Those are just a sample of the artworks, digital artwork. This is a sample of the output that we got. Creative photography. Photojournalism. And there's also video documentary and creative photography. Each picture had to be attached to an article to give an awareness about something that is happening on the ground in Egypt. We created a lot of social in Arabic. We got a lot of engagement to try to heighten the local awareness. Us as a company, I was saying earlier that we have to be sustainable. So how can we create impact and be sustainable at the same time? So we're creating corporate engagement packages where we invite your company employees on a day trip. What we do is we immerse them into nature, we make them love nature, and then we teach people how to be sustainable about it. So what we realized is that people are not really aware to make lifestyle changes just yet, especially if they are living in cities or away from natural habitats. So what our approach was to immerse them into nature. This is an example of an activity where we take them and we would identify marine life for them and coral coral types, and then we would teach them how to take care of it and the best case practices for when visiting the sea and into day-to-day life. So this is just a sample of the things that we've been up to as a company. We'd love for your feedback. We'd love if you have anything that you would love us to extend to Egypt, our beautiful Egypt. Please let us know and we'll make sure to bring it here.
Thank you so much, Farah and Ahmed. That's again very inspiring to see like how you're trying to change the tide in one of the places that you love so dearly, and that is also very special to my heart. One quick question on like working with the local communities in Egypt and getting them on board. do you find that like you're getting more and more people involved also because of their love for the ocean, or do you really need to work on the economic incentives to get them interested?
As imagine if, to be honest, we are always trying the economic and also health incentive rather than the environment. Because people will only love the environment, as we said, if they have a relationship with it. But what if they don't? They shouldn't be sustainable or aware or conscious. No, we should always highlight what is your personal benefit, as in health benefits. For example, as Matilda was saying, she was sick. So if you tell someone you are more likely to be sick around plastic, then they will avoid it. If they're not interested in cutting down their plastic, because plastic is very convenient, it's very affordable, and it's very available. So it's very hard to make someone cut back on it unless there was an economic incentive and a health incentive.
Yeah. I know exactly, and that's also my experience. Like we need to lead with the environmental message, but eventually people will really change their behavior once they understand what is in it for them.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
So then to our last speaker, Bruce Dudley from Canada. Bruce is the Senior Vice President for the Delphi Group, and he will be presenting on a new report that they've published on the blue economy. And we especially like to thank Bruce for waking up very early where he is in Canada. Bruce, over to you.
Thanks so much, Vincent. Really appreciate being here, and thank you to Nora and John for the opportunity to share details from our Ocean Partnership Summit at Globe Forum in Vancouver, Canada in February 2020. The report entitled Scaling Up Blue Economy, a Domestic and International Roadmap, and I believe Nora's been able to share that through the link with everyone. It was a product of a 3-hour concentrated session with representatives from international governments, financial institutions, environmental non-governmental institutions, ocean technology companies, and blue economy businesses. So it was a very eclectic mix of folks. And, you know, I'm always humbled when we work in the area of ideas and theory to hear the speakers that have preceded talking about real hard evidence, real activities, things that are making a difference. So I think it's the combination of how information technology and ideas come together that's really important. Before I get into the report, I just wanted to mention that the roots for OPS, it was linked back to a session that was held, a G7 session held in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada, called the Ocean Partnership Summit. And it was hosted by Minister Catherine McKenna, who was our Minister of Environment and Climate Change, the ministry responsible for environment in Canada. For those of you that have ever heard about Catherine McKenna, she's a real force. And we were helping support the event planning and execution. And she really felt that it was necessary to have collaboration on both sides of the Pacific. And John Thett was in attendance, as was my CEO, Mike Gerbis, and Ocean Partnership Summit for Singapore and Ocean Partnership Summit for North America was born out of that conversation. The first OPS was launched at ADEX in Singapore in April 2019, which I attended, and then the OPS in Vancouver, which was held in February 2020, that John Thett attended. Globe Forum was the last major in-person event in Canada before conferences were shut down due to COVID-19. And the pandemic has certainly been highly disruptive to all our efforts to resolve ocean issues, and OPS is no exception. I'm hoping you'll find a few tidbits in the presentation from the report that might be helpful post-pandemic. We decided to focus on blue economy as the framework for OPS at the Globe Forum for several reasons. One was that it strategically focused on, the event itself focused on corporate sustainability, innovation, and sustainable finance. And the blue economy was a perfect fit to bridge all these interests while staying focused on oceans and freshwater as well. While the other reason was that a primary focus was on international issues and activities, we also needed to engage Canadians on domestic issues such as the Great Lakes, and the blue economy allowed us to do that. And lastly, it helped us tie together a bunch of sub-themes like blue bonds, blue carbon, and economic activation and investment. So it really worked well as a way to bring the conversation together for a lot of folks. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was, what's the opportunity here? And a major benefit of the Blue Economy Framework was that it recognized the negative financial costs of a deteriorating environment and the services they provide, while also including the positive economic opportunities associated with repair and recovery. So it looks at the good and bad of the issue as a way of understanding how to improve it. This was definitely the case with plastics, which was a major focus of the discussion with the international community. The rest of the presentation will focus on the international dialogue, although it's interesting to note that between the international conversations that focused on plastics and other issues, there was a lot of synergy and a lot of comparability to the Great Lakes conversation that was happening in the Canadian context. But I'll deal specifically with the international dialogue session. First of all, a healthy environment has long been recognized as a precursor to a healthy population, and we've certainly heard that from the presenters previous to this. But it's also important to a healthy economy. And while it's recognized that achieving it is not easy on land or at sea, there are many things about oceans that make them difficult, such as their vastness and the challenge of monitoring. There's also the absence of jurisdictional law for much of it, and the fact that a large amount of the impact occurs out of sight below the surface. So there are things about oceans that make them incredibly difficult to deal with. However, as new frameworks like Blue Economy emerge, and new science and data on the plight of oceans is shared, a public sentiment for the ocean has been quick to build. Oceans matter to the public, even for those who live thousands of miles from a shoreline. The interest has given new hope to our potential to help turn the tide toward ocean health. One can only assume with the size of the problem that there'll come great economic opportunity in addressing it. But it's interesting, I've spoken to a number of folks who've spent their career in conservation and environmental protection, and many people were astounded by the depth of concern for oceans, which is quite remarkable because we're talking about plastics here today, but we know there are so many other issues that need to be addressed. So what's the progress that's been made? Well, in the report itself, you can see that there's a lot of information in terms of the activities that are going on, but we felt that it was really important to acknowledge in particular the role of governments and the international community who are having to educate the public on specific issues and begin the difficult task of addressing issues like plastic pollution. The collaboration noted is impressive, yet there's a good deal of silence from the private sector, which is surprising given the sizable economic activity that is reliant on the ocean, such as fishing, marine freight, tourism, and other things. Dr. Alistair McGilgram, who was the lead author on an APEC publication on ocean debris, revised his estimate of the negative economic impacts from ocean debris in 2015. The original report was done in 2009, and they revisited the data and redid the economic impact statement, and it was $11.2 billion in Asia Pacific in 2015. So that impact, that economic impact is significant. Of course, that's just the problem. That's not the solution. The solution stands to create a lot more economic value than the problem itself. While progress is being made with the help of institutions like UNEP, there is an absolute need to bring the private sector into the solutions orbit. So the report, and through the conversation that we brokered, talked both about opportunities as well as barriers, and I'm going to go through those quickly for you. Firstly, there's a definite trend globally towards impact investing. Investments that have a positive social and environmental impact, but that also have an economic payback, will create opportunity for organizations focused on having a positive impact on ocean health through their programs and through innovation. And I think we've heard from both sides of those examples from our speakers today. This is even more true post-pandemic, where institutional investors and corporate brands are rethinking how they put their capital to work. Some early evidence of this is with the support of major sporting events, where longtime corporate supporters are pulling back in search of more meaningful efforts. It's that social impact trend is something that could be highly valuable to organizations that are trying to create those positive impacts for the ocean. There was also a lot of discussion of blue bonds. In particular, we noted that green bonds, which are worth trillions in transactions annually globally, blue bonds are just starting out, and blue bonds are focused exclusively on the ocean environment. So there's a lot of work to do there to bring more of that activity towards ocean flight. So one of the things that we noted was the need to look to institutions that are part of that progressive sustainable finance dialogue. Institutions like HSBC, the World Bank, these are organizations that are looking at trying different types of financial mechanisms on that can address different problems. Ocean Innovation Accelerators were also talked a lot about. There are a number of them globally, I think probably over a dozen now, and more are joining all the time. They're typically interested in the technology side of things, and they're very important to that ocean innovation ecosystem. There's an Ocean Innovation Accelerator in Singapore. There are Norway, France, California, and Canada, and there are many that have probably come up since the writing of the report. The report also noted that there was a need for new economic models to drive action and investment. For example, the Task Force on Climate Financial Disclosure, TCFD, will help identify where risk is present in the blue economy, and risk reduction efforts will be the focus of investment. This is a climate lens, which is applied to the problem. However, effort is also underway to begin a similar process for biodiversity that's stemming out of conversations in Europe. We need to make sure that oceans are on the agenda for both for climate risk and for biodiversity. So I did mention some challenges that came up through the discussion. I'll just sort of go through those briefly because I want to make sure we've got some time for questions. Probably one of the most interesting was the lack of a clear definition for what constitutes blue economy. Again, these are early days in the conversation, so the fact that there isn't really a very solid and consistent definition applied means that, you know, some institutions, for example, may consider ocean exploration as an acceptable area of technology development, which has led to the inclusion of sustainability in the definition. So people now refer to sustainable blue economy as opposed to blue economy. A clear definition is important to financial institutions so that they're aware of what is in and what is excluded, and lack of clarity can lead to uncertainty, which is a barrier to investment. We've already talked about data and information, so I won't go into that one in detail. But we have also talked about scale, but I think it's very important to emphasize that one. Organizations involved in ocean health need to think big, as the size of the problem is often many times the challenge of land-based issues. The need for scale speaks to the deployment of technology, not necessarily the need for new technology, although both are present. New partnerships that can demonstrate impacts at scale will be needed. One of the conversation points was that in many situations like climate change, a lot of new technology is required. But in this case, most people felt that the plastics problem wasn't an issue of technology availability. It was really about deployment and the financing and the financial mechanisms to see that deployment happen faster and at a larger scale. The other interesting, because I know several of you mentioned about carbon, and climate change is certainly an all-consuming issue right now, especially for oceans. Blue carbon, which are projects that sequester carbon either near shoreline or within the ocean. These projects are challenged for another reason. Certification and verification of ocean-based projects is in the very early stages of development. And issues like permanence that could be applied from the forestry sector are just going to make it that much more difficult. But these projects create carbon credits that create economic value. So it's very important that we push to have these clarifications achieved. Lastly, just in terms of the roadmap itself, where's this going? I'll just quickly go through the list that came out. And I think the first one relates to the issue of certification and verification for blue carbon. There's a need to support blue economy efforts at COP26 in Glasgow. The continuation of the pandemic is threatening specialty themes like blue economy, and effort is needed to ensure that blue economy builds off the conversations that started in Lisbon. And if it's not possible because the pandemic is still a problem, then a virtual session on blue economy is something that we should advocate for, because these conversations around climate change and ocean health are very important. And there is a critical link to plastics as well in terms of the hydrocarbon element. Education of the public was probably one of the #1 themes, because it's the public's call for action that will ultimately lead to greater funding for projects and investment. So that education, and it was so heartening to hear that so many of you are involved in that education process, but it's critical to sustain that. We need to focus on ocean plastics and public interest because it's a very important bridge to a bigger story on ocean health, including climate-related impacts. And lastly, work to support a common definition of blue economy, which I mentioned earlier. In the conclusion of the report, I think I'll just read it to you because I don't think I could put it any better. The health of our ocean is indivisible from the health of as a society. The ocean is the source of half the breaths we take. It sequesters carbon and helps combat climate change, and it provides food for a majority of the world's population and has untapped potential to help feed our growing population in the coming decades. The ocean supports billions of livelihoods annually. We have a lot to lose and even more to gain in protecting and preserving our ocean. A flourishing blue economy with diverse ocean-based investments will empower us to preserve one of our most valuable resources, while also realizing vast social, health, economic, and environmental benefits. Whether you are a leader from business, government, civil society, or the scientific community, we invite you to stay connected with Globe Series and OPS as we continue to shape innovation, policy, financing, and markets in support of a flourishing blue economy. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Vincent.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for this this really interesting overview. I think that touches upon everything that Mathilde, Farah, and Ahmed also talked about. So just for the sake of time, I have a couple of questions. First, Bruce, what would be your key recommendation to people like Mathilde, Farah, Ahmed, and others who are working on bottom-up initiatives and where scaling is very much often sort of the challenge? Like, how can they access some of these funding mechanisms that you just talked about?
Yeah, it's a great question, Vincent. I think keep an eye on impact investing. I was using the sports analogy where companies are considering pulling back from supporting sporting events because the social and environmental impact isn't what they're looking for. These are hundreds of millions of dollars, these events that get put on. So the money that could flow into impact investing is sizable. And I think that's the type of scale that we're looking for in terms of deployment. I mean, Mathilde, you didn't give an example of the cost in a given region of your units being deployed at a large enough scale to solve the problem, but it's not unsurmountable. And so that new money that's flowing into oceans to achieve that environmental and social impact is going to be a really important indicator for the types of projects that can be undertaken.
Yeah, and maybe also following up with that, because obviously today we're working in our conventional economic system that we've known for the last 50 years, where we don't really value the value of natural ecosystems. So is that also something that you expect to be changed in the next decade? Like, are governments looking into integrating that into their GDP, for example?
Yeah, again, another great question. And I think one of the things that I should have underscored from the report was that, plastics is really a feature of a policy and market failure more than it is a technological one. And I think one of the things that's disturbing about the private sector being somewhat silent in these conversations is markets are what they do really well, creating value for shareholders and others is their raison d'etre. So bringing the private sector into the solution side is going to be really important. My son was bragging to me the other day that he just got a pair of, I won't mention the brand, but very expensive running shoes that are made from 100% post-consumer fiber. They were 30% more expensive than the running shoes that were made from the same fiber, virgin plastic fiber. So as a millennial and as someone who's very interested in the environment, he didn't think twice about spending that extra money for that post-consumer fiber. So this is the type of market, the demand side, that's going to generate value for those post-consumer plastics that's going to help solve the problem.
Thank you for that. We have a question from the audience. And I think this is open to all panelists, but maybe Bruce, mostly related to you. How can a new social enterprise get financial support, and how should one approach collaboration? I mean, it ties into what we just talked about, but.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of the financial community in the audience for the dialogue, so that kind of influenced a lot of the focus. And one of the things that financial community had to say was that you really, for someone to make an investment, whether that be a project or whether that be a cleanup or a new innovation, you have to tell a very clear and compelling story. And what that means is you need data, as Matilda was reminding us, but you also need to weave it in a way that tells the story of the social impact, the impact on the livelihoods of individuals in a region, the impact on the environment. You've got to be able to tell that story in a compelling way in order to free up those dollars to get the funding that you need to do what it is that you want to do.
Thank you. I just want to conclude with one question for both Matilda and for Farah. Like I said in my intro, like the next 10 years, I feel are going to be decisive for the future of our oceans. And I really wanted to hear from you, if there's no constraints, where do you see yourselves 10 years from now? And what kind of impact do you hope you have achieved by 2030?
Well, I think, when I talk about plastic to fuel, some of the things that people always ask me is, aren't you the Singapore Idol? Aren't you the TV producer? What are you doing, right? You don't have a background in environmental science or in petrochem industry. You have no right to be exploring ideas in this area. And I have a big problem with that because I was born a disruptor. I think I'm speaking to a lot of people who are as well in this call. And I feel that is the only way that any company, not just ours in sustainability or in ocean conservation, is going to survive post-COVID. The future is literally what we imagine it to be. And I'm a big believer that it's always impossible until it's done. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but to be, just using the power of Google and partnerships and conversations and putting all of these people together. If I'm able to come up with something like that, there are people who are smarter, more capable, who would be able to ideate solutions, especially from different quarters that you don't naturally think you're from. I mean, I pull ideas from people as young as 5 years old, all the way to, we had somebody who is about 87, who was sharing with us in our community. We pull all of these people to share their ideas and bring them to the table. And I think it's these crazy ideas that come together, and how we're able to hack them quickly, fail quickly, but also then learn from the mistakes and and continue to address market objectives. We're rewriting what the market should be with our products and services that we offer. And I think, it's that mindset that is really able to turn plastic to gold, right? As today's topic is really about, and to figure out how we ideate and look at the problem from a different angle.
Thank you.
So I'm really hoping that in 10, 20 years, we don't need awareness campaigns anymore. And then people are just aware, they're just comparing solutions with other solutions and just trying to optimize different technologies. But I really hope that we totally skip the awareness part, because this takes a lot of our capacity as a company before offering the alternatives or offering the solutions. We actually need to identify the problem, make people aware of it, and make people care. So hopefully the next generation already feels the problem and is passionate about the environment, and like Bruce was saying, like they're willing to go the extra mile and pay an extra fee for to do something, even if it was just by wearing running shoes that are more sustainable.
Well, thank you so much for those concluding words. I think we've hit our time limit, so I want to thank the panelists again for this really inspiring session, and let's get to work. Let's get to action. Nora, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Thank you so much, all our session panelists. But before we end this session, I would like to do a group Wi-Fi, where to commemorate this session that we have from as early as 3 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Singapore. So I'm just going to do 2 shots, just a smiley one, and then I would like to invite my colleague Carter also. Carter, do you want to show yourself?
Yes, madam.
Hello, what madam? Okay, waiting for Katali. All right. Kata, you want to say hi to Bruce? It's been a while.
Hey, hello everybody. Good
I
to
said hi
see
in the chat
you
room.
guys again.
Hi, Carter.
Hi, Carter. What's up, man?
Yeah, man. Good. Hope everyone is good. Informative.
Yeah.
Discussion.
I truly agree. This is a very good and insightful conversation and dialogue that we need to actually discuss about. So let's not wait any longer. I'm going to count to 3, and then we'll do a smiley shot, and also second one we can do a wave shot, okay? Because I kind of like the wave. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I saw that, Farah. Very good one. Okay, so I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then another shot is the one with the wave.
Looking good, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce grooving. Okay, I'm gonna try with both hands. Ahmad, you're not waving. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got it. All right, thank you so much. everybody. Thank you so
Thank you so much
everybody.
for hosting. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Great to meet you all.
Thank you,
Take care.
everybody.
Have a great day,
Happy
everybody. It was
World
a
Ocean
pleasure.
Week.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
happy
you.
Thank you. Cheers, bye.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Nora. Bye.
Nora, hey.